speech, why everybody hates him, why he's been banned from Twitter, all those important issues that I'm sure you're all dying to find the answer out to. I would like to remind everybody to like and subscribe, hit the bell, do all the things that help TIR grow as a show. And as I always say, no white people are paid in the production of This Is Revolution. So don't feel bad that I'm getting any money for anything that we're doing. That being said, if you do have a little bit of extra money, please consider supporting TIR on Patreon. It does help keep Jason in food. He is a growing boy and he needs to have his full steak meals. And he can't do that if he has to not eat food because he doesn't have money. So consider supporting us on TIR. Now, what is the topic for today? Well, it is free speech. And who better to talk about free speech with than publisher and renegade leftist, apparently, Douglas Lain. Hey, Doug, welcome to TIR. Welcome back to the safe space.
I don't think it's fair to say that everybody hates me. Just
no, that's
like
true.
95% of people on the left maybe at this moment. And I don't even think they really hate me. I think that's an overstatement as well. I think they find me annoying.
Maybe annoying, maybe concerned about your mental health as well. That's another common another common refrain. But I want to jump right in. We've got an hour. Doug's time is valuable, as they say in Turkey. Fuck it, nuck it. Time is money. So, Doug, you've been on this Twitter Files thing. We've discussed the Twitter Files before with you and Vaughn. And recently you've had a couple of articles, which I have put in the description below so people can take a look at them. You have one in Compact magazine, so welcome to the Fascist Club. You have one in Sublation, and you have a letter to Cosmonaut magazine where you have been discussing the issue of free speech, and you've been issuing what I would call a Cutrone-esque critique.
Cutrone-esque.
But you've been issuing this critique of the left regarding the question of free speech and the whole issue that we're dealing with now, which is, discussions about disinformation, about how to combat disinformation, the relationship between large social media platforms and the government, the constitutional implications for those, for the government's relationship with social media companies. Obviously, it's if the government steps in and stops a publisher publishing something, it's very clearly a violation of the First Amendment, the protection of speech. In the case of these social media companies, it's kind of a legal terror incognito. It's like
not anymore. No. It is not. It's not terror incognito at all anymore. And really, if you read the Twitter Files, it wasn't difficult to muster an opinion there either. I mean, the injunction from Louisiana makes it clear that what the government was doing was censoring legally protected speech, and that was a violation of the First Amendment, which is why the judge, forbid the Biden administration from continuing. So no, it's not. It's no different than telling a publisher what to publish or stopping a newspaper from running a story or in any other way violating the First Amendment. This is a very clear-cut case and very large, expansive attack on the First Amendment.
Well, can you outline what this case was about and why it's significant and why you regard it as the vindication of this argument, which has been brewing for a while?
Well, I can tell you in broad strokes. That plaintiffs sued a variety of government organizations, including the Biden administration itself, for violating their free speech rights and by censoring them on social media, not just on Twitter, but on YouTube and Google broadly and Facebook and other companies. They gathered a lot of documents to support their claims. The judge looked it over and saw, yes, indeed, the state was threatening the social media companies with retaliation if they didn't submit to their demands for censorship on the platforms. So and then the judge demanded that they stop. They were compelled to stop. This is being appealed. I don't know what the next ruling will be, but So it's very likely I think that this will go the same way that the uh, attempts to protect the Fourth Amendment went in 2013. So when the big tech companies were found to be in conjunction with the state violating every people's Fourth Amendment rights and doing illegal search and seizure, um, there were some court cases early on which went for the plaintiffs, people who had their rights violated, but then on appeal, for a variety of reasons, including national security reasons, the case was dismissed. That was rescinded, and the surveillance was allowed to ultimately continue. I think we're probably going to be looking at something like that now, but in this moment, it has been made clear that a fair reading of the Constitution and the legal precedents and the evidence of state interference would show that the Biden administration, on a massive scale, and not just the Biden administration, but the Department of Homeland Security, the CDC, the FBI, the CIA, and on, many parts of the government bureaucracy uh, worked to suppress people's legally protected speech online in violation of the First Amendment. So,
So, what is your criticism then that you've outlined this in the various articles that you wrote, the compact piece, the sublation piece, and the cosmonaut piece, and the cosmonaut piece was part of an exchange as well. What what is your criticism of the left, broadly speaking, with regards to its disposition towards this question of the constitutional right to free speech and these big tech monopolies that control these platforms?
well, in the compact piece, which was the first piece that got published, I started out by mentioning the conclusions of the Durham report, which was a special prosecutor investigated the investigation into Trump around the allegations of collusion with Putin and Russia, and found really two major things. I mean, there's a bunch of details in the Durham report, but the major thing was that the FBI did not follow its own protocols or standards when opening up I think it was called Crossfire Hurricane, which was the investigation
Mm-hmm.
into Trump. That the initial basis for that investigation, if properly investigated, would have meant that there would have been no investigation, because the evidence was so thin, and there was a lot of counterfactuals that would have indicated there was no collusion at the beginning. And the other thing that was discovered was that the reports that the FBI received that the Clinton campaign was putting together uh, basically a, a false flag or some sort of attempt to cajole the FBI into attacking Trump along these lines, that they had concocted evidence and were planning to try to weaponize the FBI against the Trump campaign. Um, that those reports that the FBI were aware of were ignored, and in fact, uh, the evidence presented by the Clinton campaign, like the Steele dossier, was taken up
Mm-hmm.
as further evidence. And then there's all sorts of shenanigans that went on to perpetuate the investigation when there was no evidence of collusion. Um, and I started with that not because I'm sympathetic to the Trump campaign, but because the allegation of Russian collusion with the then sitting president and allegations of massive Russian interference in our election was what justified the Department of Homeland Security uh, taking control over our entire electoral infrastructure, including all of the major media companies and social, including digital media. So in 2017, in response to what turned out to be a hoax, the Department of Homeland Security started this project to control the internet, control the major media. And so when you take those two things together, you can see that the real victim of the hoax, the Russiagate hoax, wasn't the Trump campaign or the Trump administration, but the American public and our own political freedom. So, as a leftist, that's a fact that we should be able to take up and do something with and understand. It should inform our politics, and that's one of the things that I said in this piece in the
in,
in
in,
the in
in com-
Compact.
yeah, that it